And now to finish off my drawing of my original character, I'm going to start coloring. My goal for whenever I'm coloring my characters is I want to achieve a lot of depth in the drawing itself through their shading in by adding a shadow on the ground beneath them. But the way I start that out is I actually start out with a lighter color for most of the main colors on their body. Like say for his hair color, I'm going to use a yellow to start off, just a simple yellow, and I'm going to color as lightly as I possibly can. So first I'm going to pick out those shades of colors that are sort of my lightest, of whatever colors it's going to be. So first I'm going with the hair, just a nice light yellow all the way across. Here, a few of these lines are just got a red outline going across them. And whenever you're coloring, no matter what it is, whether it be your first coat of color or your last, you just want to make sure that you're coloring very evenly. And the more evenly you color, the better your overall shade's going to be. The goal is to try to get as much of the white out as possible. For black, rather than just going right into black of any kind, I like to start out with a dark gray. So that way I can sort of work a little bit more shading into black, because black, most of the time, is just not pure black. It's got a lot of different grays in it. For the eyes, instead of just going straight into brown, I'm going to first do is lay down an orangish color. Let's see, this is hardly noticeable. And now I'm going to put in some of the brown I'm going to be using for the eye. And there you can't really tell much what the difference is, but to me that just adds a little bit more to the eyes. As for the skin color here, I typically like to take a lot of different blends of colors, mostly peach colors. And depending on what that turns out to be, I might have to throw in a little bit of red or maybe even some yellow just to get the color I want. But first I'm going to start out with the lightest and most neutral color of peach I have, which is this color here. And just for this character, and for all the characters that sort of look like this in my story I've been writing, I have them with this symbol on the side that sort of represents what they work for. To me, that just sort of helps give the armor a little bit more identification. Each one of those triangles I just drew on the bottom are yellow. And now I'm going to start shading my character, which is where you're going to really see the depth come into the drawing, and this is what's really going to make the drawing pop out of the page, pretty much. The first thing you have to do is you got to choose where your lighting source is coming from. For this drawing, I think I'm going to have it coming from about down here somewhere, and it's going up on his face like this. That way we get a lot more lights on the front of him, and the shadows are towards the back of him. And just to show you guys what that'll look like, I'll shade the face real quick. I'm going to take a darker peach color, like this, and I'm pretty much going to shade to the right of the light, or right away from the light, and all the darker shadows are going to be back here. Pretty much you just want to blend the colors into each other. And for the fingers, you almost have to shade each individual finger, except for those ones back there. For the hair, especially for this character's hair, I don't just like leaving it as one shade of color. Rather, I'm going to take this orange. And I'm just going to start stroking across the hair in sort of the direction that it flows. Sort of helps define the hair a little bit more, and to me it just adds a little bit more interest to the drawing. It doesn't have to be anything very specific. In fact, you're trying for it to not look uniform. So we're just going to stroke across here, following the curves of his hair. And I'm even going to throw in a little bit of brown. Then on his skin down here, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of brown, sort of even out the color a bit. And then one interesting thing to do with the hair, to create a little bit more brightness to it, I'm going to take my eraser on my pencil. I'm just sort of going to cut in a highlight in his hair here. This makes it look like the hair sort of has a little bit of a shine to it. Try and make that as bright as we possibly can. That right there is called subtractive shading whenever you're using the eraser to get your highlights. For Brick's metallic armor, I'm sort of going to do this much more carefully than what I've been doing for the rest of it. I'm going to do a lot of gradient shading across this. What that means is I'm going to blend my colors into each other very smoothly. I'm going to be getting lighter and lighter as I come towards the light. That's going to be my lightest side there. And I'm going to keep working on my darks a bit more. Beneath that armor plate there, I'll darken it up a little bit. And now what's going to really make the armor sort of appear like it's shiny, so I'm going to use the eraser to put in a little bit more highlights, even over there. Put in a little bit of reflected light here, and even into the side of these shoulder pads there. And the goal with armor is you're trying to get it to look as metallic as you possibly can through adding in highlights, whatever else you can do to make it look shiny. And that same technique can be used for all the armor on Brick's body. For the black, wherever I want the black to be, I'm just going to take my black and go across now. And the reason I started out with a light gray was because it basically eliminates all the white that would have been there otherwise. Helps me get a more even shade of the black. By the time I get done with it, it is going to be the darkest color on him. That's what you're really trying to achieve with black, is make it the darkest color. Then back here, since this part of the cloak is supposedly in the shadow a little bit more, I'll darken all the colors back here. And now I'm going to go in and take my eraser. Sort of going to show where the light hits it still. Perhaps where his leg is in front of it. Pretty much just continue shading along your entire character. The same principles for shading work pretty much on all of the parts of the character. It might change a little bit based upon what texture you're going for, but since most of the armor on here is metallic and shiny, I can use the same technique. And in my blacks even, I'm going to add a little bit more highlight to it, making it a little bit more diffuse than the rest of the colors. For the reds on Brick, rather than doing a whole bunch of shading on them, since they're at the forefront of most of the drawing, I'm going to work on making the color really pop, just be the brightest color on the page. Just to put more emphasis on the red. And then just to brighten up the red a little bit, I'm going to throw in a little bit more highlight. Maybe there's a few places where you'd almost like to dull it down. You can do so by using a cool gray or a darker gray. And now for the background, it's going to be more of an artistic background than anything else. First I'm going to add a little bit of colors to the rocks he's standing on. For the texture of the rocks, it's going to be very, very rough, jagged. And then I'm also going to go ahead and throw in a little bit of shadow beneath his feet. going to follow the rest of the shading. We're just going to darken the spots by his feet, sort of blend it into the ground a little bit more. Then in the background here, I'm just going to throw in a few more reds, yellows, and oranges to accentuate my character. It's not going to be anything too fancy, but it's just going to do that much more to accentuate the character, and it's also going to partially hide this little mess up I made over here. So, let's try and get rid of that. Here is my completed drawing. I got it really close to my first character actually, and I really like how this drawing turned out. And I mean, you can use these same shading techniques for just about anything you're coloring with colored pencils. I don't know about other mediums, but colored pencils are my favorite medium because there's just such a wide variety of shades of color you can get with them. A few things to keep in mind when shading with colored pencils is the more different colors you have, the more options there are for you to shade with. I didn't really use the same colors to shade on certain parts of this. I used all sorts of colors. Don't be afraid to try some new different types of shading techniques. I do a lot of subtractive shadings in my drawings to get some really nice highlights, and that just really makes the metal just stand out that much more. You guys should let me know what you think of the drawing in the comments below, if these tutorials were helpful in any way. And if you have something you would like me to make a tutorial of in the future, leave it down there as well. Later on I will also be making a tutorial showing you how I would color this on the computer as a sort of more digital drawing to get a different type of look to the drawing. So thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time, I'm gonna say it, keep on drawing. There. Now what? I should probably turn the camera off now. Yeah, I'm gonna do that.